Welcome back. Let's go ahead and compare traditional to activity-based costing methods. So we left off and realizing we're going to go into our learning objective 3 and compare the two. So let's talk about that. If we have a plant-wide overhead allocation, use one product occurs. It's great. It's easy. One level of analysis. ABC has multiple levels. So we have a departmental rate, produce some more accurate allocations of overhead cost than a plant-wide rate. So if we have multiple departments, that's going to be much more accurate than going one global catch-all rate, a plant-wide rate. Although product costs determined with department rates may not be as precise as those determined with ABC, they are used because they're a heck of a lot easier. If we've got one rate to allocate rather than 6 or 8 or 12 departments, one calculation is easier than 12. So let's take a look at Monster drinks. Say we have two energy drinks, 8-gallon batches, two departments, mixing and bottling. Total of 60 batches are estimated to be produced for 2,400 machine hours, total manufacturing of 156,000. So we are estimating, and we can come up with a single rate in traditional costing. And we go in and say, okay, we got a cost per batch, direct labor, cost per batch, total direct hours, and then we do the calculations and we come up with our plant-wide rate and we figure out, yep, how many hours. We got a standard rate of $65 per machine hour. Okay, total overhead divided by total number of hours, we get dollars per hour. All right, nice one, clean, quick calculation. So if we have multiple departments, and let's say we have different departments that we need to assign. We're separating the mixing and bottling still. We have additional data and overhead associated with those. So the direct labor associated, we have the departments, we have the totals, and we come up with, okay, here's our overhead allocation. But if we're separating out, we now have separate departments. One is per machine hour, one is per direct labor hour. So we are allocating between these two costs. Now look here, we have two, we've got per machine hour, per direct hour, which is different than when we calculated our standard $65 per machine hour. Because we now have separated it into two categories and we're separating the mixing and the bottling for coming up with a separate activity rate for those particular activities. So now if we have the additional data, how many direct labor hours used, great. How many machine hours used? Great. We're not just using direct labor. Again, we're using machine hours and direct labor hours. And now we're totaling the cost per batch. And here we got 1579 and 1841. If we go back, we got 1510 and 1910. The total is going to be the same, but the allocation is a little different here as we go, and a little more accurate here as we're combining and totaling our costs. Because what's going to happen here? We're looking here and saying, okay, we got a cost per batch. How many gallons did we make, or how many units were we able to make? Now we're going to have some costs associated. We'll get a little different cost calculation depending on how we allocate this to figure out a better, more accurate way to price it and to sell it. So applying overhead with ABC, we got labor hours and machine hours. We've got all these different overhead costs, and we are go ahead and we're doing tests, machine hours, batches. We have different costs for each one of those pools that we worry about. And here's all the pools. Again, different types of activity, different rates associated with each of those. And we come up and multiply that out. And now we have, instead of one standard rate, we've got 8 different totals that we need to tally. Each activity rate is multiplied by the actual activity to determine the cost allocated to each product batch. So each batch can associate separately and get totaled accordingly. So ABC, cost per unit, total batch were 60 batches, resulting in a cost of 1659 and 1761. Those are the costs associated with the different product lines, the energy drink, the meal drink. If we compare plant-wide rates, 1510, 1910, using departmental rates, and batch using ABC. So we're looking at different costs here. And the mule is cheapest with ABC, and energy is the most with ABC compared to a plant white versus departmental versus an ABC methodology. So that's going to give us insight into some comparisons on, and going back, we have the most accurate reflection when we have all these cost pools that are being analyzed, and that's going to help us make better decisions when we are allocating costs, when we're trying to figure out where to save and what costs we can afford to save, as well as how to price products that we sell. So that will take care of this comparison, this direct comparison. We'll stop here for now, and we'll come back in a few minutes and continue onward.